Hey, I'm Kelly, and this is Personal Politics, where I get up close and personal with ideas that spark change. You know what needs to change? The PC police. Okay, so language. Yes, let's talk about words, baby. Let's talk about all the good words and the bad words that may be words. I'm so sorry, roll the intro, please. Language is really such a beautiful thing, and from the wisdom of cognitive scientist Lera Boroditsky, language shapes us early, broadly, and to quote her, language guides our reasoning. So cool. So when it comes to speaking about people and their identities specifically, how can we make sure we're being respectful and empathetic? Because though language can shape how we think, we can also shape language because it is a living, breathing thing. The words we use every day have a tremendous amount of power, whether we're describing other people or events or ideas or the things around us. Think about how early in the pandemic, the term social distancing was most common when describing staying 6 feet apart, where now we use the term physical distancing. That's about being more specific and accurate, because health officials were never saying, don't talk to anyone, they were saying, physically, please stay apart. When people are telling you to say something differently, it's not because they think they know better. They're just trying to help make your words more accurate and meaningful. And for different communities, being specific and accurate is about respect that is owed to them. Using words that are historically loaded with violence, injustice, and persecution is not just a faux pas. It often feels like an act of violence in and of itself. As someone who has received their fair share of racial and homophobic slurs, I can tell you it cuts deep and it makes people feel disrespected and often unsafe. Okay, so I want to reiterate that a key part of using your privilege is about listening to specific communities and learning from that knowledge. Adjusting the words you use is probably one of the most common ways to do this. If you need a refresher on how to use your privilege and what privilege is, go check out my last episode. Hang on, one thing first. In this video, I will not tell you what not to say. You will not face legal consequences for saying whatever horrible thing you can think of. Well, unless it's hate speech or defamation, which hopefully is not your intention. You are free to say whatever you want, but that also means others are free to criticize you and think differently of you for what you say. Freedom of expression does not mean freedom from consequences or judgment. Like, you can call me whatever slur you want as long as it's not hate speech, but I don't have to like it or be okay with it, and neither does anyone else. Now, much smarter people than me have developed frameworks to help you on the ever-changing journey of respectful language. Because I'm not going to pretend that learning every single nuance about every single community is easy. It's definitely not. So here are 4 key concepts based off the style guides for inclusive language developed by the DC Fiscal Policy Institute and the nonprofit organization Some of Us. First, we're going to talk about people first language, which is super simple. Everyone is a person, and therefore we need to keep that as the #1 priority when we're talking about a certain group or identity. For example, that's why we say people of color rather than the obviously offensive colored people. That phrase feels loaded with racism because it is. It has painful associations with the Jim Crow era, segregation, and disenfranchisement. All in all, personhood must come first. That's also why we say people with disabilities and people of low income, rather than swapping those words around. It's also about respecting self-identification. Basically, it's key to give all the opportunity to self-identify and respect that agency once they have. This gives people power over their own story and how they are described. Simple things like asking someone's pronouns or sexuality instead of assuming, and respecting their pronouns. Something to think about? These aren't their preferred pronouns, they're just their pronouns. Remember when we were talking about making language accurate and specific? It's a key example. There are also things that you might not know about people's personal feelings about certain words. Like, some LGBTQ+ people love the word queer and others really don't. Or like, sometimes you might not know how a person of color might identify themselves. You should seriously just ask, hey, do you identify yourself as a person of color? If they identify as Black or Indigenous, it's important for them to have that moment to tell you. It's why we have a whole new acronym, Black, Indigenous, people of color, rather than just people of color. It allows us to be more specific and accurate. These next 2 concepts are similar, and they're all about respect, acceptance, and being clear on what you're saying or writing. Using proper nouns and an active voice will help make sure that you are keeping people at the forefront of your language. Proper nouns, so like saying Kelly rather than that girl, aka the distinct name of a person, place, or thing, Proper nouns help us speak more specifically on an event or interaction and help avoid stereotyping by being more precise. Then it's about using an active voice. Whether you're writing or speaking about a community, a person, an organization, or a group of people, using an active voice helps point to who or what is doing the action. This helps us put our biases in check and help communicate more clearly and directly. For example, this is about racism in Stars Hollow versus racial inequality divides the community of Stars Hollow. The first example is vague and doesn't point to what is actually happening to the community. And in the second example, it's clear the blame is to be placed on racial inequality. This is indeed a Gilmore Girls reference, but to be clear, there is no racial division in Stars Hollow because there are like 3 people of color who say words in the entire 7 seasons of the show. No one is perfect, we are all on our own journeys, we have to help each other learn about these things. So, Google a word or ask a friend or tell your mom she shouldn't say that thing anymore. Please just move through the world knowing that words can hurt in ways that you may not understand, and that not using a word or respecting someone's pronouns is way easier and kinder than hurting the people around you. Also, correcting a word choice is a great opportunity to call someone into a conversation. If you want to learn more about that, go check out my video on how to have tough conversations. Tell me about a time someone corrected you and you learned from it in the comments below, or tell me what you think a future episode should be. This is Personal Politics, where I get up close and personal with ideas that spark change. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll see you next time.